Okay, this episode is titled Heart of Ice. It came out on September 7th, 1992. Directed by Bruce Timm, story edited and written by Paul Dini. Animation by Spectrum, who we've previously seen as the animation company behind episodes that we've reviewed, which were On Leather Wings, It's Never Too Late, and POV. All episodes that we really liked. So, we've got voice actors Kevin Conroy as Batman Bruce Wayne, Efren Zimbalist Jr. as Alfred, Michael Ansara as Mr. Freeze, Marie Devon as Summer Gleason, Mark Hamill as Ferris Boyle, and Michael Bell, Robert David Hall, and John Marinio as additional voices. Honourable mentions. This is Paul Dini's first writing credit on the show. He's been the story editor previously for Christmas with the Joker and Pretty Poison, but this was the first screenplay he wrote for BTAS. This is Bruce Timm's first time directing for the show as well. He's obviously been credited as one of the showrunners and character designers for the show, but this was his first time in the director's chair. Michael Ansara, who plays Mr. Freeze, started his acting career in 1944. I didn't recognise any of his acting credits besides him playing Kang in Star Trek, but he was in over 200 films and TV shows. In his introduction, Mr. Freeze says, "Revenge is a dish best served cold," often referred to as a Klingon proverb in pop culture, and since he played Kang in Star Trek, there was a little tie into Star Trek there with him saying those lines. He sadly passed away in 2013, but at the age of 91, which is a great age. And Mr. Freeze was the last role he ever played, which was in the video game Batman Vengeance that came out in 2001. Oh, okay. Yeah, so he must have retired because that came out in 2001 and he passed in 2013. So he either chose to no longer act or he just was too old and maybe there were complications. But he lived for another 12 years after that, so that's really impressive. What a great life and what an amazing Mr. Freeze. All right, my utility belt of fun facts. Bruce Timm stated that Spectrum was responsible for airbrushing Mr. Freeze's helmet in every single frame that featured him. Such attention to detail ultimately drove the studio to bankruptcy. So Spectrum, we will see them. They do come back for other episodes, but they were so in love with the show, which, I mean, this episode shows it, right? Like, the animation is incredible. Mm-hmm. But they worked too many hours and they worked too many people and they didn't have the money to back it. And they eventually went bankrupt because of it.
That sucks.
It does suck. Mr. Freeze was initially just another Batman villain with a gimmick and had in fact been killed off in a storyline in the comics at the time that the Batman the Animated Series episode debuted on television. Not long afterwards, the comics resurrected the character and incorporated the tragic backstory that Paul Dini had created for him.
Well, he's kind of a Marvel villain, Mr. Freeze, right? Because he's the classic tragedy, like, I'm a good guy. Oh no, an accident in a lab. I now have strange superpowers. Yes. I'm only doing this actually to save somebody. I'm not really a bad person. That's like Spider-Man villain 101.
Yeah, you're right. It's such a Spider-Man villain backstory. You're absolutely right. I've never even thought about that. Yeah. More fun facts. Bruce Timm came up with the idea that Freeze barely escaped dying in a cryogenic experiment gone wrong and considers himself dead. As a result, he doesn't fear death and has no emotions. Allegedly, one of Bruce Timm's first choices to play Mr. Freeze was Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, that would have been dope.
That would have been good. I mean, Michael Ansara's perfect. Yeah, but maybe he would have had too much even, like, sinister emotion, like the deadpan that Michael Ansara has.
Detective.
Apparently, I've got another note here. Michael Ansara had a hard time playing the role of Freeze, and it took him a long time because he was just acting too much, and he was getting frustrated with Bruce Timm because Bruce Timm would kept on going like, no, like less, like say it with less emotion, like a robot, deliver it flat. He kept on pushing him and eventually got to the point. But even the guys in the sound studio were doubting Bruce Timm, like when he was like, no, we need you to do that again, but you're going to have to slow it down. And I love that because it's such a definitive voice that everyone knows. Along with a new backstory by Paul Dini, Mr. Freeze's redesign was created by Mike Mignola, creator of Hellboy.
Well, that makes a lot of fucking sense.
Right?
My God. Goggles, slim head. He's a master of silhouette. And
yes.
what a silhouette does Mr. Freeze have? That's the best fun fact I've ever heard on this fucking show. That's awesome.
I knew you'd love it. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I can't wait to tell him. And I thought maybe you knew already, but I'm glad you didn't.
No,
even his, like, where his arms connect to his torso, there's like those purple, like circular, almost like rubber bits.
Yeah, they're more teal than purple. He's got purple gloves.
Yeah, that's true. They are more teal. You're right. But that's very, like, Hellboy-esque in that, like, kind of
all of it is
gas punk type style, isn't it?
Yep. Fucking love it.
Batman uttering, "My God," after watching the tape of Mr. Freeze's transformation is unusual for a cartoon, as the censors generally considered any mention of religion or any expletive impossible. Bruce Timm mentioned...
but God, that covers all grounds, basically.
Yeah, but they haven't...
I mean, I'm an atheist, and I say, "Oh my God," all the time,
Yeah, but this is the censors for kids, and it's in the 90s. That was one of their rules, is you can't say "my God."
No, you're right. You should censor children from God. I agree with that.
Well, like, they would always, in this show, later on, we'll see things where they go, like, Alfred will go, "My heavens," instead of "oh my God," because heavens...
that implies that there's a heaven, which is the same shit.
I guess it's just using the word God, I guess, is just a no-no for some reason.
Jesus H. fucking Christ. Holy Muhammad, Batman.
Got any others?
Mother of Zeus.
In February 2002, to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series, polls were held at the website The World's Finest to determine the best episode of the show, and Heart of Ice was the winner. Do you think...
That's not the best episode of the show.
I don't think it's the best episode of the show. Do you think, of the episodes we've watched so far, is this better? Because I would say we haven't liked an episode more than On Leather Wings yet.
I think Leather Wings is the perfect Batman the Animated Series episode. The nostalgia, the music, the vibe, the mise-en-scène, just there's some amazing animation in there, and just it feels right, that episode. Heart of Ice is great, but I don't know. I kind of went into it like, oh, here's Heart of Ice, famous episode. Everyone loves this one. And even I was like, I said to my wife, like, you should watch this one with me because this is like one of the best ones.
Right.
And then I both found that we were both on our phones. So by the end of it, I was like, oh, that's not good.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I would say that I agree with you. On Leather Wings, in my opinion, beats this out just a bit because of all the reasons that you listed. I totally agree. It's just the perfect Batman episode. But this is definitely special. This is a close second, in my opinion, so far in the episodes we've watched.
Oh, so far in the episodes we watched, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so. When he gets knocked out and he can't remember who he is because it's just a fun time.
Oh, The Forgotten is, it's such a good episode as well. So this was an Emmy Award winner for Outstanding Children's Programming in 1993. Batman and Robin obviously took the Mr. Freeze storyline for the movie and the depiction of the character. Bruce Timm and Paul Dini both admitted that if they had a chance to change anything in this episode, they'd make Freeze's tears freeze on his face whilst he was crying at the end of the episode, which, of course, was then later used in Batman and Robin for Arnold Schwarzenegger, his tears froze on his face. Batman's logo is reverse colors twice in this episode. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's a yellow bat signal a couple of times. Yeah. The original idea for the flashback video was to have Freeze cling to Nora's cryogenic tank and realize in horror that his hair, now frozen, is breaking off in chunks. Can you imagine if they did that? Apparently, Paul Dini stated that he wanted to do this in pre-production, but they were over airtime and had to cut it out. And finally, there are 2 Star Wars references in this episode. Do you know what those Star Wars references were?
Oh, yes, I do. Hanging upside down, like Luke in Empire, and also like Luke in Empire, the cryogenic freezing chamber, whatever it's called.
The back to tank.
Back to tank. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Wampa cave is when he's hanging upside down. Yeah, and of course, Mark Hamill was the Joker at this point. They had already had him re-record over some of Tim Curry's dialogue, but they needed this character.
Oh, that's not very nice.
They needed this character, and he was the perfect choice. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, but allegedly he based this character off of Phil Hartman, Mark Hamill. And there's a bit of Phil Hartman in there, I can see.
Phil Hartman?
Phil Hartman is the neighbor in Jingle All the Way. That's where you would know him from. But he's also the voice of so many Simpsons characters. And I could see him...
It's nestled safely under a tree.
Yeah. And he's just like, this is my experiment. Like,
oh, these cookies!
Oh, this freezing technology!
Next to Mr. Freeze himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes, he did. You're right. There's another connection. That's cool. So...
That is my wife in my lab.
In my cryogenic chamber. So what did you... I mean, you've already kind of mentioned, but what did you think of this episode? What was your opinion?
Look, the fact that they added all of that backstory to Mr. Freeze via the show is astounding because he is a fantastic character. And there's a brutality to it of him... Like, when he froze that guy's legs, if Batman didn't save him, that guy was going to, like, lose his legs, right?
Yeah.
Like, he'd get, you know, whatever it's called.
I love how cold-hearted Freeze is, no pun intended with that, where he's just like, you either come with me, or if you stay him, you'll suffer the same fate. Like, he doesn't care.
Yeah, and they're like, don't you care about it? He's like, no, he fucked up.
Yeah.
I was like, respect, Mr. Freeze, respect.
Yeah. I'd hate to be a thug, though, for Mr. Freeze. Like, imagine, like, you have to wear all these layers. You're freezing cold
I like
all
the
time.
cold, baby.
Do
I like
you?
The cold. I'll always have the perfectly, like, temperatured martini, you know? And, you know, he can make me, like, the perfect spherical ball for my evening scotch.
But do you think he'd let you drink? He's not going to be like... Why don't you take a quick 5 and have a scotch?
I mean, like, don't hire me, baby, because when the 5 o'clock comes around, his mouth opens only for booze.
Where is Will Robson? This giant freeze ray has not been built yet, and his components are missing.
I'll be there in just a second, please.
Why did I hire you?
Because before 5 p.m. I am the best.
We start at 5.
Oh dear.
Oh god. So what did you think of the music?
We started. Why do you think I took the job, baby?
What do you think of the music in this episode?
It's very Godfather because it's like about.
Yeah. It is Godfather.
It's fine.
There's some Jaws hints in it. Did you hear the when he's doing the first robbery at GothCorp in the beginning?
No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, there's some Jaws theme to it. I think it's good. I like it. I think it's got like, you know, a good emotional kind of theme to it.
I think it's more because of Nora.
It's the snow globe, right? Like,
yeah, the snow globe, but it plays into like she's also like the spinning ballerina, right?
Yeah,
and so it's like playing into the little like fairy song that would play for something like that.
Well, it even plays in his snow globe to begin with.
Does it? Well, is that then? Yeah, that's exactly why.
So, but I love that. That's like what old composers would do, like, you know, with James Bond, and it's like, what does a diamond twinkling sound like, or, you know, what does underwater sound like with Thunderball? Like, I like how they'll like take the snow in a snow globe and make it.
I've made the song for Thunderball. I hope you're ready for it. It's pretty cool.
It's not like that at all. Look, I respect people that like take something and give it a musical score and a sound. Like
absolutely, Succession. Every character has their own theme, and it's great.
Yeah, and like this leitmotif, I really do like, and yeah, the fact that it's the snow globe and it sounds like snow and kind of Christmassy at points. It's really great. It's interesting that we don't get a still image for a title card on this episode. It's just the snow animated, and then we pull back and we're actually inside the snow globe. There's no like still title card, which is really interesting. And I thought, oh, that must be a Bruce Timm thing because he's directing this. And then there's another episode we'll get to, The Laughing Fish, which is Bruce Timm directed as well. And there's no title card for that either. So maybe he was just like, I don't want to use title cards. I'm going to do my own thing. I thought the Batmobile chase sequence at the beginning was pretty good. Like, that Batmobile looked really good.
It did. Yeah.
it hasn't really stood out to me in the show up until now, where I'm just like, damn, that Batmobile looks great. Like when it's in the rearview mirror, and he's
you were a Batboat man.
Yes, and because the Batboat had way cooler of a scene than any of the Batmobile scenes we've seen so far, until I watched this episode and I was like,
you didn't like Penguin and his goons thumping the top of the Batmobile and
I can't
children being like, what is this mobile?
I can't say that reached my top 10. I did laugh though when the hatch on Freeze's van opens and his hand comes out like a telescope and he's holding his gun and then he like a robot, he just turns it and fires, and I'm like, why don't you just stick your hand out, mate? Like, why are you doing this like weird like robot?
For the theatrics. I may be dead inside, but I am still a thespian at heart, as was Nora. Oh.
Now I'm sad again.
Does mine work?
Hello, yes it does.
It's foolproof Freeze.
What's playing on the West End? I really like Book of Mormon. I thought its commentary on religion was quite humorous.
Do you think that Batman having a cold was weird to see in this episode? Because
it makes him human, but
it does make him human, and I like to be reminded about that, and I think it's good to remember that. But I've always seen him as such a resilient, like unbreakable character, and when he blows his snotty nose into a tissue, I was like, "Oh, Batman, go to bed, mate."
That's the point. He's just a human man.
I know, but I thought you would be so pissed if, like, you were Ferris Boyle, yeah, and you're meeting Bruce Wayne, and he comes into your office and he like shakes your hand, and he's got the worst cold ever.
I'd be like, get the fuck out.
Like, have you heard of a pandemic? Like, this is how this shit started. It started with bats.
Why do you think I wear this over my face? I'm sick of getting all of your colds.
Emphasis on the sick.
And the cold.
You would be Mr. Freeze. You'd love the Mr. Freeze suit. You'd wear that everywhere.
Oh, it'd be great. It would keep me cool. It would. So I don't have to sweat anymore because I fucking hate sweating. And I wouldn't catch anybody's fucking diseases because I've got a nice like big coverage over my head.
I mean,
it's probably got a built-in toilet so I can just piss and poo. Freedom.
I don't have to move anymore.
That was always the goal. Oh no, it's getting a bit snug in this suit. I've been having too many frozen pizzas. Nora, stop feeding me frozen pizzas.
My wife. That's my wife. She's Nora.
She's fine now.
Nora has a feeding kink.
As do I. 600 pounds is the goal.
It gets me hot, but I don't like to be that.
Oh no! It is a conundrum.
Now we're just talking into our glasses. It works though. What did you think of Bruce's disguise as a security guard? Because I thought it was the lamest disguise yet. It's just Bruce Wayne with blonde hair and eyebrows. I'm like, dude, you're not fooling anyone. You look just like Bruce Wayne.
Well, fuck. He's like, fuck you. Superman fucking puts glasses on his Clark Kent. I actually dyed my hair a different color. It's a full dye job. I'm fully committed. Like, this is going to be me for the next 30 days.
Yeah. Just seeing Batman with, like, dyed blonde eyebrows underneath. It's amazing.
Like, you change actors again? Or?
When Batman's watching the security footage of Freeze's accidental creation, there are so many different shots and angles. And at first I thought, like, okay, maybe we transitioned into that scene as an audience, right? And we're watching it. But then I realized, like, no, it's still in black and white. So this is the footage that we're watching.
So, the security guy's probably just like, I moonlight as an editor. And I just thought, I could have showed you one shot, but it wouldn't have been, spicy enough. I figured there's a 6 camera setup in there. I don't know if you know this. The lab has got it set up. So, I did a wide shot when they came in, a close up for dramatic effect when Nora bit it. You know what I'm saying?
Batman's like, the production value of this security footage is excellent.
You can't put a price on my value. Well, you can. You can hire me, and I'll edit all your security footage needs.
Do you imagine if Batman becomes like a security film footage critic, like after this? Where he's just like, this isn't as good as the Mr. Freeze one.
Camera setup? Boring. half of it off camera. Oh my god. 4:3 aspect ratio. Oh!
So am I the only one who thinks that Ferris Boyle is not in the wrong at all in this episode? Like, he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
But he's not a bad guy. To me, he's a dick. Yeah, sure, he's not a nice person. But when watching the videotape of Freeze's origin, he says, "This has lost me a couple mil on this operation. I ordered it to be shut down weeks ago. As a businessman, he's done nothing wrong. He's lost money, he's ordered it to be shut down, and someone's disobeyed him and using company property. He even says, like, I have every legal right to do what I want here." And he's right. Like, yeah. I'm like, you're not a bad guy. You're literally doing something. And then Freeze, he pulls a fucking gun out of a holster and points it at him.
He's a desperate man.
He's a desperate man, I get it. And then Boyle kicks him and causes the whole chemical explosion. But you could say that was self-defense because Freeze had a gun trained on him.
Yeah.
So the whole thing at the end where it's like, Batman's like, I have this security footage and this will, incriminate Ferris Boyle. I was like, no, it won't. It's just going to show how, like, actually he did nothing wrong. He shut the business down and told a guy, don't shoot me, and then had to defend himself.
No, I agree. Is this in my head or did this happen in the comics or something like that? I can't remember if a writer added this, like, interest, or if I've come up with myself, probably not me. I think I must have read it somewhere. But I remember something about how we've all been told that, and poor Nora, his wife, frozen, all this stuff. But there was like hints that, well, actually they were like either not ever together and he was like obsessed with her.
Yes.
Or she was like, they were getting a divorce and like he was like,
there's basically been lots of versions. Yeah, so that's one of the versions, is that he was never actually with her and he was obsessed with her and basically, he put her in cryo sleep because she was ill and like she didn't even know who he was. There's another one.
I love that.
I love that too. Yeah, I do. I love that.
But then again, it takes away...
I am an incel.
I'm quite problematic.
Not very cool.
I need to chill out.
Why are they funny?
It does take away from, like, I love the idea of you lose your partner in life. So you just fucking go
Snap.
so cold.
Yeah.
That's why I've always loved the character, the Punisher. Like, you kill my whole family, like, I'm going to fucking murder you. And I love that about that character. But I like the emotionalness of Mr. Freeze, where he's like, you took away my fucking wife. I am dead. Like, Michael Scott, I am dead inside. Like, it's just like, I love that.
I'm okay. No, I'm not.
Just him feeding like penguins, like in like a frozen like place.
Why are you the way that you are?
I love Mr. Freeze doing Michael Scott quotes. Oh my god, that's really funny.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm trying to think of one now.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
I don't want to work. I just want to hang and the smoke all day.
Oh, God.
That is what Nora said.
So, what I had forgotten about this episode is that Mr. Freeze thinks that Nora supposedly died in that explosion because she's gone, right? In this episode, we never see her. And I was like, I thought that this story came up with her being frozen and like he's trying to find a cure. And then I remembered that actually it's not until another 70 episodes from now that we see Mr. Freeze again and he discovers that his wife is still alive and in the tank. And that's where the Batman and Robin stole that piece from it because it came out like very close to when they were writing the script. So yeah, I think that this episode, the thing is, as you said, it's like the Punisher and it gives him motivation, but it very much is the term fridging. Do you know the term fridging?
Fridging, huh?
Yeah. I thought that was funny. But so for those that don't know, the origin of the term came from a 1994 comic, Green Lantern, issue number 54. The hero...
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking about.
Kyle Rayner returns home to find his girlfriend, Alexandra DeWitt, killed and stuffed into a refrigerator, which is really messed up for a comic.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
And this trope became recognizable as a way for authors to use female characters as devices to project their male characters forward in their story, which is exactly what this does. Granted, this term was coined after this episode, coined by comic book writer Gail Simone, who wanted to have more female empowerment in comics, and she certainly did that with stories like Wonder Woman. But yeah, I like...
And a million other things. It's fucking Gail Simone. She's a legend.
Yeah, she's a legend. I get the motivation, and I don't mind it. It is fridging, but I don't mind it. But what I don't understand about this episode, my biggest problem with this episode, is Freeze is building this giant freeze ray. Yeah, he's stealing all these components from Gothcorp because he hates Ferris Boyle and blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, he's just like, okay, I'm going to freeze Ferris Boyle in this building with this giant freeze ray. Batman destroys the freeze ray, and then Mr. Freeze still gets up to the floor that Ferris Boyle is on and still freezes him in place. So I'm like, why wasn't that your plan all along? Why did you have to build this giant fucking gun when it broke and you're like, oh yeah, I've got one in my hand. Here I go. And he does like this Iceman thing when he kicks the fire hydrant, like flies up.
Oh, it's great.
It's a cool scene. Yeah, I love that.
It's quite like really out of place for him. He's like,
I like to have fun from time to time.
Are we?
I saw this in Mary Poppins, one of my favorite musicals, as we have established that I am a thespian.
But do you know what I'm saying, though? He went through all this trouble to build this freeze gun, and he never ended up using it, really.
And he tries to build a giant freeze gun in the Schwarzenegger movie.
Batman and Robin, yeah, he does. But at least his idea was, I'm going to freeze the whole city. Not just like, I'm going to... It's not a bad Batman theme, right? Like, it's not as good as this one or the Elfman one, but it's good. I like it. It's got its own style to it. My love that Batman moment.
Love that.
Is when he throws an icicle into the control panel of the freezing gun and he jumps out of the shadows and he lands on the thug. I was like, oh, he looks so cool.
He looks great in a lot of this. Him sitting at the back computer typing away, and the light hitting his cape. Him hanging upside down, there's a lot of great looking Batman in this episode.
There is a lot of great looking Batman. We even got a Tim Burton Batman moment where he punches the guy backwards, he doesn't even look at him. I thought that was cool. I laughed when Batman karate chopped Freeze's neck a bunch of times because Freeze grabs him and Batman's just like judo chop, judo chop, judo chop, and it does nothing, and he's just like, what do I do now? I'm fucked. So what do you think of the ending of this episode?
I don't think anything of it. Why?
Well, do you think it's a bit weak that Freeze was taken out by some fucking chicken soup, or is it ironic?
It's
is it
clever. That explains why Batman has a cold and all that, etc.
Do you think Alfred was mad that Batman wasted his good chicken soup? I can see Batman coming back from the fight, and Alfred's like, "So, how was the chicken soup?" And Batman just lies.
Cracking, Alfred.
What did you like most about it?
It was piping hot.
Yes, but I spent a lot of time, Master Bruce. I layered in a lot of
I got a cold, I can't taste stuff right now. Everything just tastes bland to me. He's so annoying when he has a cold. Oh my god. Alfred! Ding, 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 ding. Alfred, I'm too cold. All right, here you go, sir. Extra blanket. I'm too warm now, Alfred. I wanted tomato soup, not chicken, Alfred. Oh, for God's sake. Alfred.
Alfred just goes into the Batcave to get away from it.
Just comes on the Bat computer. Alfred! Can you put Vicks Rape and Rub on my back, Alfred? Where's massive dick? He will do that for you.
So, what makes no sense about the thermos, though, the chicken soup thermos, is Batman takes it out from his belt, right? Like, we see him take it out. And I was thinking at first, that's a big thing to have on your utility belt.
Like seeing Batman, like, oh, look at that utility belt full of all those different gadgets. And is that a red thermos? Like, it's a bug standard, a plastic thermos. What is that, soup? Is there soup in this?
Is there a piece of tape that says Bruce Wayne on it? Master Bruce's hot chicken soup. But the thing is that I was like, okay, I'll buy it. It's strapped to the back of his back underneath his cape. But then at one point, Mr. Freeze takes Batman's utility belt and literally carries it away with him, and Batman has to retrieve it. There is no thermos on that utility belt. So it just reappears, and I'm like,
that's the magic of cartoons, bud. Don't worry.
I know, but I was like, that is some convenient storytelling. So the episode ends with Summer Gleason being given the security footage of the sabotaged experiment that incriminates Boyle, and then we cut to Arkham Asylum where Freeze talks to his snow globe whilst Batman watches from a rooftop. And I always feel a little emotional when Freeze says and delivers the line, "I can only beg for your forgiveness and pray you hear me somehow, someplace where a warm hand waits for mine." And that last line always gets me, bud. It really does. I don't know. It makes the hairs on my arm stand up. Like, oh, wow. Just the way he delivers it is really good. But just some place where a warm hand waits for mine. Like, I do love when Freeze is even talking to Batman when he's hanging upside down. He's like, I would give anything to feel the warmth of like air on my face on a hot summer's day, and like the loving embrace. Like,
yeah, I like the hot face summer day thing. I get that. But I think the ending, it's a little bit, wanky, that final line. But if it tickles you in that sweet spot, then that's great. It did its job.
Yeah, I think it's right for the character that they created, and I think it's a good ending. I like that ending. So that is the end of the episode. The next episode that we're going to review is The Cat and the Claw, Part 1. This was the first episode to ever air on TV.
Right. This isn't when she turns into this isn't like an Island of Dr. Moreau one, is it?
No, we're going to have to wait a while for that one. No, this is the first time that we meet Catwoman and the first time that we also meet Red Claw.
Okay.
So, we've got that next, which will be a two-parter that we'll review in 2 different episodes.